You clicked on this video because you want to make a change in your life when it comes to your health and fitness. Here's what you will get from this video. You will learn stuff that you already know. However, you will be making new discoveries when it comes to food, health, fitness, and your lifestyle. You will know the changes that you need to make in order to attain that New Year's resolution that you've just set, that you've been setting for 5 years and you have not achieved in all those 5 years. This video will let you know how to lose those 10, 20 pounds that you are struggling to lose. This video will make you eat better if you listen to the advice and the information provided. This video will help you if you're the kind of person that wants to take accountability for their actions. No more excuses. No more, oh, this is the reason why I haven't lost the weight. I can't do it because of this. I'm too busy to go to the gym. This video will provide you with an opportunity to change all that. So lock in, and if at the end of the video you actually like what was said, give us that like, share the video so that we can grow as a podcast, so we can start sharing this information more with people. Thank you. Welcome back to the Yardman Podcast, the number one Jamaican podcast in Murcia, Spain.
Number one Jamaican podcast in Europe.
And we're slowly going for the world. And this time in the world, we've gone back home with Jae Edwards from Spry Fitness. He is the CEO and founder of Sprytraining. He's a Jamaican-born strength and conditioning coach, and he has been known for pioneering performance-based functional fitness in Jamaica. When we think about fitness in Jamaica, we only think about being able to run on the track and run on
And
the
play
football field.
football.
Exactly. I didn't even know about going to a gym until I started university in Jamaica, to be honest. And I used to play cricket
Yeah.
and stuff like that. We just do the normal thing just to play cricket. Jay, after studying law, politics, and serving in the British Army Reserves, he shifted from a corporate path towards, I would say, a more purpose-driven career in health and movement, blending his academic acumen and military discipline and a passion for natural human performance into a holistic fitness facility focused on strength, mobility, and conditioning, and also the overall well-being of people. And we like starting with one question here, Jay. If you had never tuned in, the first question, and it kind of boils down to your entire bio a while ago, is who are you and what is your purpose? What do you think your purpose is on this planet?
My purpose is to help other humans to achieve their ultimate performance in this world, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. It all ties together, and that's my purpose. Is just to help people, to serve.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you started, could you tell me, just give me a rundown about your background and your skill sets and what makes you the ideal person to help people with this?
So I was never really a sports person at school, and what happened was when I got to university, I started playing rugby at university, and the reason why I started playing rugby at university is because I was a gym goer pre-university, and what was happening, I realized the rugby team at my university wasn't selecting persons based upon performance. It was more aligned with persons' social status and them knowing the team captain, etc., etc. So in my final year, I introduced a performance-based selection for the rugby team because I was in the gym a lot, doing a lot of performance-based training. However, there was guys who were in the first team for the rugby team, and they weren't really, they wasn't able to perform at the capacity needed. So this is where I then started to bring in certain performance tests as a prerequisite to be able to get a spot in the team. Also, then one of the things that fascinated me, probably in my mid-teens, was the understanding or trying to perhaps understand more what was needed to become optimal in joining the military. So post university, I wanted to join the military, and I started learning so much more about health and fitness, but it was to piece it all together. How are these guys in the military able to be strong but able to be fit? Because I was seeing guys in the gym who could lift a lot of weight, but they couldn't climb up a flight of stairs without panting.
Yeah.
So to me, the real military experience was about being action man, action woman. So therefore, it was bringing all of the attributes together. Again, performance-based training. This led me to joining the military and then further investigating after doing several courses in the military, such as the All Arms Commando course, which is one of the tougher courses in the military for physical attributes. And one of the key interests that I had, I found it very intriguing, was to find out how, from doing my training, was some of these soldiers able to maintain so much muscle mass, but they were able to run so far and for so long. And I found out from being a part of this training, I realized that during basic training time, when you're out in the field and you're doing all of the fitness training, you won't be able to hold on to as much muscle at that time. But when you come back into camp after you pass these necessary courses, you can hit the gym 4 times a week. You can then consume more protein. It becomes now a situation where it is unmanageable what it would have been until you experienced it, how to really create the ultimate man.
What is performance based training and how does it differ from me just going to the gym and lifting some weights?
Right. So normally most of us as men, we get into the gym because we want to look better for the females. And it really only requires us generally to build up some biceps and some chest and generally neglect the lower body. It's just aesthetics in how you look in a t-shirt. Unfortunately, that is not performance based because when you start to build muscle on the top half and you're not doing it in the lower half, what ends up happening, you can't run as fast, you can't perform. So there are certain endurance requirements for a man and a woman. You should be able to walk 4 miles within an hour at a minimum. You should be able to run 100 meters in less than 15 seconds. It may slow down as you age, but the more you hold on to these qualities is the more you can retain them into your latter years. And when you retain these things into your latter years, I describe it as longevity. And a lot of Jamaicans who have longevity, our grandmothers and our grandparents that come from the Portland and come from St. Thomas up in the hills, they didn't have a gym, but they had a hoe and they had a machete and they had different devices that they had to use, which created a functional body, which created a performance-based individual where you have 97 years old people because they go to the farm every day, which is up a hill, and they're not consuming calories before they go. They're in a position where they have longevity, and that is strongly linked to performance-based training.
What about the food that they eat as well? Because the diet in Jamaica is quite a specific high carb based diet. How did that
Right.
play a role in their longevity?
Now, high carbohydrates is not a problem for certain things. It may lead to you not being able to be able to build as much lean mass, but you can have a high carb, low protein diet rather, and still have optimal health. That is typically what happens to most of our older people in the places that I just described. So we was interviewing a gentleman in Portland the other day. He's 83 years old. He's a fisherman. And now one of the things that he was discussing with us was his diet. And he ate a lot of dasheen, yam, banana, but his protein intake was low. Why was this beneficial? Because it left him in what we call a calorie deficit. He was eating less food than he needed, which will mean that he won't gain any excessive amount of body fat. So no matter what it is, carbohydrates, fats, or protein, once it's in a deficit, you will not gain weight. The bottom line now comes down to how much lean muscle you will have. And lean mass can help you from certain illnesses whilst you age. So the high carb Jamaican diet in the rural aspects is not necessarily bad because often persons are consuming good carbohydrates which have minerals and vitamins in it like yam and banana and cocoa versus people having the carbohydrates in the city, which is heavily processed, such as certain rice with gravy, You're then looking at chips, fried food. It's really a different type of carbohydrate diet in the urban areas as opposed to the rural areas.
You went
I
into a
thought,
very technical term there. I want you to break down a few of these for
Right.
the audience. The first one, you mentioned a calorie deficit.
Hmm.
What is a calorie? What is a calorie?
Right.
Explain a calorie to a typical Jamaican.
Right. So a calorie is how scientists really measure food. They measure the energy and they use calorie as a way to measure it. So, for example, a banana may have 30 calories in it. And that's how they measure it. Based upon the weight of that particular banana, it may equal to a certain amount of calories. Uh, every single food has a calorie amount, and it depends on the size of that food versus the type of that food. It is what the calorie amount is. So, generally, a caloric deficit is us eating less than our body needs to maintain per day. So the average female needs around 2,000 calories per day to just maintain their existing weight. If it was a calorie surplus, it would be anything over 2,000. And if it was a calorie deficit, it would be anything below. So a calorie maintenance would be the amount you need to sustain your existing weight.
So you gain more weight if you're in a caloric surplus, eating more than the 2,000. For the average man, how much is the average caloric intake per day to maintain?
The average man should be getting around about 2,500 calories per day. The average
Okay.
man weighing about 170 pounds at about 5 foot 10. That's
Okay.
it varies depending on population, how much muscle you have, etc. But that's me being as simple about it as possible.
A
Now,
generic
what is
standpoint.
happening in Jamaica now? Your average box lunch, if you go and you order a curry goat, rice and peas with fried chicken, that calorie amount is about 1,800 to 2,000 calories. And then if you add the soda on top, it's about another 150 to 250 calories. So one meal a day, typically now in an urban area in Jamaica, you're looking at all your calorie needs in one sitting. Hence why we have the uptick of obesity and increased weight gain amongst our females and males because one meal for the day, because of the oils and all the other things we're adding to the foods, is bringing our calorie amount from one meal to where it needs to be for the entire day.
In order for me to lose weight as an average man, I can start off with say, 2,500 worth of calories, and I can look at the food, weigh them, and then run a calculation, and then try to get less
Mhm.
than that. So if let's say I move from 2,500 to 2,000 calories per
You're
day,
right.
how much weight
Yes.
would you say I will lose in a week?
The data suggests about 3,000 calories equal 3,500 calories. Between 3,000 and 3,500 of calories equals to 1 pound of body fat.
Okay.
So over a week, being in a typical deficit of 500 per day would equal to around about 3,500 over 7 days.
Okay.
So you would lose about a pound of fat per day if you were to be in a deficit of 500 calories per day. So
Okay.
if you remove the soda, so what does 500 calories look like in an average Jamaican meal? You would remove for 500 calories one piece of the fried chicken if you had two, and you'd probably replace any of the juice that you would have with water.
That's that simple, that easy.
But the problem that most people have is to do it consistently. You might get it right today, but to do it right, the same thing for every day, especially on the weekends when calorie intake generally goes up because of social situations, etc., where we're just consuming food because of social interactions, it then becomes very difficult. That is why persons can use things like fasting to eliminate an entire day of calorie intake so that if they messed up on other days, you could then get the consistent pattern. Because if you're then deficiting during the week from Monday to Friday, and then you go into a surplus by 1,000 on the weekends, you've just basically outweighed what you did for the 5 days in the start of the week.
So your net caloric intake for the week still hasn't made an overall difference in it. You
Absolutely.
you also mentioned we're talking all about these calories and stuff, and you also mentioned like the carbohydrates, the dashi, the cocoa, the yam, the breadfruit,
Right.
and those things, high carb diets.
Right.
What are some other macronutrients that we should be consuming, and what is a carbohydrate essentially as well?
Right. So we have three main carbohydrates. Three main macronutrients rather. Carbohydrate is one of them, protein is another, and dietary fat is the other. Now, we need two of those are essential, which is amino acids that comes from proteins and fatty acids that comes from dietary fat. An example of dietary fat or fat, plant-based fat, for example, is avocado, pear, as we call it in Jamaica, is high in dietary fat. And meat, certain meats like, for example, piece of chicken with a leg and thigh, has more fat on it than the breast. So fat is essential and proteins are essential. However, the body is an amazing thing. The body can actually do a lot without all the things that it needs before it starts to break down. It's not that carbohydrates aren't important, but they are not as essential as the other two macronutrients. However, societies evolve over time, and Jamaica is one that really shows that a high carbohydrate, we are more predisposed to potentially diabetes and hypertension because of something called insulin resistance. And it's a bit of a complex situation where it's how much sugar we have in our blood from these carbs, our body's ability to clear it, and how quick we can clear it. Because when you eat sugar, your body produces what it calls insulin to try and bring down the amount of sugar in the blood. So, why we become insulin resistant often is because we consume too much processed carbohydrates over a period of time, which leads to other issues, especially in females, which you have polycystic ovarian syndrome. We also have weight gain. Various different challenges can come. We also have in males loss of libido. We have erectile dysfunction. A lot of situations can come out of highly processed carbohydrates. Proteins come from generally meat, or we have plant-based proteins as well, such as peas, beans, and legumes. But the challenge with those proteins, they come with a lot of other carbohydrates. So you'll have to balance your carbohydrates if you're going to take your proteins from your beans and peas, because you're still trying to find a good healthy deficit in order to remain healthy. And the last one, which is fats. Fats comes from, well, I mentioned the avocado before, and I mentioned particular parts of meats. They are higher in fat than some others. So those are essentially what our body needs. Carbohydrates is the yam and the potato, which are generally your good carbohydrates, but they are very starchy. Starchy carbohydrates generally are building foods. When you couple building foods with proteins, you have two building foods often. And it's debatable that starches and proteins, you don't want to have them at the same time. These things are debatable, but they are all things you want to put on the table. So that, I mean, the bad carbohydrates are your bun and your bread and your biscuit. These are the simple carbohydrates that are highly processed and really is the thing that hijacks your insulin.
What would be the ideal diet? How would you shift from the current Jamaican diet? How do you make it better? Because the current Jamaican diet is I wake up in the morning, I have some Sunday Monday rice and peas and chicken, I have some
Mm-hmm.
fried egg and bread. Then
Mm-hmm.
I go work, and then for work I have a box lunch with food. And then after work, I have another basically rice and food or dumpling and
Mm-hmm.
banana
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a little piece of
Right,
chicken in it. How would you
right.
switch that up to be more balanced?
Exactly. What you just described is typically what's happening, and that's an average of about 3,500 to 4,000 calories. So over time, per month, you're having in excess of at least 30,000 calories more than you need. Now,
That's roughly
one
10
of the
pounds
things,
more than you need if you do the
pardon?
math. That's roughly
Yeah, if you do the
85
math, if
pounds
you're
more.
taking in an extra 1,000 calories per day
Mhm.
over a month period, it's 30,000 calories extra that you're not burning. You don't need that energy. What happens to energy that you don't use? You store it as fat, as body fat.
Okay.
So there's only a certain amount of energy you can store in the muscle, which our muscles can store energy, and also our liver can store carbohydrates. But to answer the question that you just mentioned, how do we correct our diet? People in Jamaica are still living a healthy diet. And I'm going to go back again to our rural brothers and sisters. You go to a typical place in rural Jamaica, chances are the person has a manual labor job. Let's go with a farmer, for example. A farmer wake up in the morning, most of them do not consume hard food when they wake up. They're still fasted, they might drink some mint tea and them gone to bush. And they gone to bush to be active for 6 to 8 hours. They're probably only consuming water whilst they're at bush. When they come back from bush, they may consume a solid meal made up of predominantly carbohydrates. Because protein is expensive, Jamaicans tend to shy away from it. So a farmer come back, he's already growing the yam, he's already growing the dasheen, but the food he's consuming is in a deficit. This is what potentially, and because he's fasted for so long, the food really doesn't become as problematic because it's in a deficit. There are so much studies that show us that consuming bad food in a deficit is way more healthier for you in the long term than consuming bad food in a surplus because the body uses it all.
I don't know if I like that term bad and good food though. Why is it bad? Like you
Because it's
mentioned the
processed. When it's
saturation, the insulin resistance, but
the
it's the food
processed
that
food,
we
the
have.
food that man make, the food that I
Mm.
call bad is the food that we create.
So if it's
I
in a
believe
can,
any food.
if it's in
Hmm?
a if it has a barcode or in a can or something like that.
Right, right. I believe those foods, I consider them bad foods. However, in the hurricane right now, that's what most people are consuming. I'm also looking for an uptick in diabetes and hypertension because of this. So we're giving out these foods in good reason that because people can't. But what are going to be the challenges for the health ministry in the next 6 months if people have been accustomed to eating a highly ultra processed diet? Ultra
Okay.
processed diet increases cancers, increases diabetes, increases hypertension, all cause mortality. We die from these processed foods. The Maasai tribe that never used to have any of these things years ago, when they introduced the Coca-Cola truck, started to go to certain places in Kenya where the Maasai tribe was, and they started to consume this Pepsi. They ask for delivery every day now, and this is when these type of things come around. So you're asking what the best Jamaican diet would look like to correct it is going back to where we're coming from, going back to sometime what people may call poverty. That same syndrome, I cross it over to also in track and field. When Asafa Powell started to do well in the early 2000s and they came to study why Jamaicans were running so fast, they looked and saw that we wasn't using the chevron track for the entire season, which is the hard surface that they run on for the Olympics. We were training on grass. However, most schools now have acquired track as a sign of wealth. But this track, which is more wealth, is potentially going against us producing as much athletes with the highest level of talent because they're not training on grass throughout the year. So some of the things that we now can afford in our lifestyle actually goes against it being prosperous and healthy.
Mm. More comfort now, but your longevity decrease as a means of
Right.
getting more comfort, essentially.
Exactly. More
You men-
health, more money. Me eat
mm.
oxtail every evening now because we can't afford it.
I get what you are saying. I get what you are saying. One thing you just mentioned
Mhm.
as well, the health impact on the country and all.
Right.
What do you? Before I have two questions as it relates to this. The first one is, would you mentioned the low libido in men? Would that be able to be linked back to the current low birth rate that Jamaica is facing due to a bad diet? Would this be some part of a byproduct for that?
There is a debate for it. It can be debated. And the reason why it can be debated, when I speak to fertility doctors in Kingston, they're saying even the soldiers and the police who come in with fertility challenges when they check their sperm count, etc., it's often not where it's supposed to be. And you're looking back at the diet and you're looking back at the inactivity. I think it's a twofold situation. Inactivity and diet causes a lot of issues that leads to low libido, low sperm count, infertility potentially. So it really affects how the body was supposed to work. So there is an argument for it that yes, absolutely. However, there is other debates that you can go into as well that generally the socio-economic situation on the island potentially may lead to more women having contraceptives. etc. So the debate is wide, and the data for us to make a conclusive argument is still open. But yes, as a professional within the space, I can point to I'm seeing lower levels of testosterone, higher levels of erectile dysfunction, and when it's corrected through diet and activity, we see better outcomes.
And what would you say is the biggest indicator that someone is unfit and unhealthy?
That's a very good question. The average pace of a human to walk should be at least 4 miles within an hour. If somebody can walk 4 miles in an hour without panting, that's a 15-minute mile. That's a good base marker for health, because we have health, we have fitness, and we have performance. Everybody doesn't need to be at a high athletic performance level. So it's the ability to be able to farm, to grow your own crops. If you're going to go on a farm for 2 hours to try and dig a hole to plant food, you have to have cardiovascular health, which links to what we call VO2 max. So your cardiorespiratory. That's why building muscle alone is not the only important factor. Your heart and your lungs need to function to give you the endurance to carry out these activities.
So a lot of times when you go into certain areas, you always see some, you know what I say, some big fat people, and you're like, they are poor essentially. They're having poverty. How are they consuming so much food to maintain that when at certain times they have to go to the shop and still trust food?
That's a great question. And this comes down to also a level of misinformation. A lot of the vendors that I speak to and interact with downtown at the market, uh, I would say a large percentile of those women are overweight. And when you speak to them, they are the ones carrying the food from country to feed. But what do they consume for their lunch? They sell the food and they go and buy box food. They do not consume the food that they carry to Kingston. So they will sell the food for a higher price and buy Shirley biscuit or buy bag juice or buy soda. They buy the things that give them, they feel, instant energy, because then they are paying for energy, which is cheaper. So it's also very economical for them. They are making X amount from being in Kingston, and they are buying cheaper foods for sustenance. So it's not widely invested that they're really buying the most expensive foods. They are buying cheaper foods because it gives them a quick blood sugar spike, which is a biscuit or a bun and cheese or a Pepsi. These things give you quick energy, but they're not lasting, and they don't have a lot of nutritional value. So you find a lot of persons in certain areas who are carrying excessive amount of weight. It's not because they cannot, it's not because it is expensive. It's definitely on the other side that it's actually potentially as cheap, because I'm not even going to campaign that healthy food is expensive, because it's not. You can buy a breadfruit. It's less convenient. You see, it takes longer to prepare those meals. So if I just buy a Shirley biscuit and a bag juice, I just eat it and drink it. Now it's cheaper and it's quicker. And
Okay.
now I forgot cook it.
One thing you mentioned a while ago, they sit, the sedentary, they don't move. And there's going to be an uptick of that as well. The more technology evolves, the more people have jobs that don't require manual labor.
Right,
What do you recommend for these people? For example, me, I sit in a chair 6 to 8 hours a day around a
right.
computer.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I also have to do a lot of desk work, but the way to offset it, when you sit, you shorten certain muscles like your hamstrings and your glutes, certain muscles that you put to sleep because of the posture you attain while sitting, it switches them off. The, the most systematic solution that you can make a part of your daily lifestyle, where you don't even have to go into a gym to correct it, is to just stretch for 10 minutes for every hour that you sit. Literally, some basic stretching. Just do stuff just like so at the lower body as well, to just keep the body active. Perhaps go for a 5-minute walk, come back to the desk, and then go again. So short breaks of, I would say, every hour. If you can square away even 10 minutes, 10 minutes for every 60 minutes to stretch and to keep active, should be able to then keep lower back issues, also postural issues and inactivity issues at bay.
If you were the Minister of Health, or you worked in the Ministry of Health, how would you fix or prevent the impending health crisis that's about to hit Jamaica when it comes to more diabetes, as you mentioned, more
Right.
hypertension, obesity?
Now, the challenge with providing high level advice to through political structures is that it doesn't necessarily always favor all stakeholders. And when I advise or have advised people at high policy level, you have to weigh job creation, you have to weigh revenue expenditure, so the government collecting a certain revenue from certain products, goods, and services. Everything has to be weighed for the system to work. So if you go spearheading just a healthy outcome, it doesn't create balance for these institutions. So it is a very complex question to answer because you're trying to weigh and you're trying to deliver so many outcomes. However, putting certain pressures on some of the manufacturers to use healthier ingredients, which some of them it's going to cost them more upfront initially, but then they can pull back the cost from the consumer. So I would sit with the manufacturers and find cheaper replacement products instead of certain amount of emulsifiers, certain amount of dyes, because societies like Denmark is one of the most healthiest societies in the world when it comes to putting pressure on the manufacturers of certain ultra processed foods. There's things like nitrates, which can cause cancer, that's not allowed to be used to preserve certain meats, certain dyes, etc. So it really comes, I mean, us having a third world country, it comes with a risk reward. And as a health minister or as somebody as a think tank that would associate with government policy, you have to weigh it. And
Okay.
because you're weighing job creation and you're also weighing freedom of choice. People in a democratic society also potentially have the freedom to choose what they consume. You're then introducing education as well on packaging. That also can help with explaining to people what the risks are with consuming a certain amount of these foods, etc. But me having my personal opinion, which potentially may lean a lot more to the right in terms of a more conservative approach and just having a more no nonsense, actually may have ramifications in a capital structure. So
Okay.
it's a balance.
Okay, I understand. Let's remove the government. Hypothetically, if the government wasn't in the picture, like no government,
Mhm.
people who are listening that are politically affiliated. I mean, no government, no PAP or JLP. You were just put on a
Right.
mandate, and you had one goal: make the population 20% healthier. What would be the first thing you would do?
Cut all processed foods. Cut all ultra processed foods. Anything that had a certain amount of sugar, a certain amount of flour, a certain amount of emulsifiers, anything that was linked to any carcinogens, which is cancer causing, all of those things would be removed.
You mentioned also the packaging on food, making the labels better. How does someone read the packaging on food? Because when I pick up a bun, all I want to know is that this bun nice. I don't care if this bun
Right.
has 500 calories in it, and I don't
Right.
know
Exactly.
how do
Exactly.
you make that. How do people learn to read a packaging? Because no, I don't even have anything close by. Oh, hot sauce.
This
I
this
have
the,
this
the
hot sauce
simple.
right here. Huh?
Huh?
I have this hot sauce right here, right?
Right.
It tells me it has the fats, the saturated
Mhm.
fat, the carbohydrates, the sugar, the fiber, and the amount of protein. It's hot sauce, people, so hot sauce don't really have much of those things. But one thing hot sauce have is a lot of salt, a lot of sodium, 4.7
Right.
milligrams. How do I know how to read this to say, hey, this is a good amount of calories per 100 grams
Okay.
for me to ingest, and it
So
has the right amount of protein?
a typical label like the one you're reading now is highly complex for the average person to read. And this is why some governments are claiming for a more blatant packaging where you have it stating how much percentage of your daily is in that packaging or in
Okay.
that serving of what you're about to consume. So you can weigh that, you know, if I have this, it's 10% already. And then the next packaging is telling me it's 20%. However, that's a more convenient way to do it, which is improving the packaging by just giving you the percentage of the daily in very bold writing. Some states are already doing this, but another way is really to educate the population on nutrition. That's a huge challenge because you first have to start with the doctors. Doctors are not necessarily educated on nutrition. As a nutritionist, most doctors do not have a part of their med degree nutrition. It's
Okay.
only just some med schools now are going back to it, but that's even debatable because it's for the cycle of the medical system, it's not it's not profitable for nutritional science to be a part of that, right? Because then it's a conflict, it's a whole conflict.
Okay.
So it is to make the information simpler is one way by percentaging what you can and can't have, but you also cannot shy away from the education of the population.
I feel like that is very important, and hopefully we get to achieve that with a little bit with this podcast as well. Which is more important, your diet or your exercise?
Your diet, your diet, at least by about 80%. And the reason why that is your diet affects your blood. And your blood chemistry dictates what happens in your hormones, dictates how you feel, it dictates so many different things. So activity, though, an active lifestyle can potentially slow or reduce certain implications from a poor dietary choice. It won't fix it.
Mm.
I mean, you cannot outtrain a bad diet in terms of the amount of exercise you would have to do to reduce the impact of the amount of calorie surplus the average person would have. You'd be ending up exercising in the gym for 2 to 4 hours a day.
2 to 4 hours a day. Wow, that's
Right.
insane. What's the average time that you should be spending working out to see
It varies. But I mean, the average human can find about 60 minutes. But most people, that's all they can find in a day. But 20 minutes is beneficial too. So if you don't have 60 minutes, don't not do it. If it's 20 you have, you do 20. That's why most societies which have active, healthy people, it's a part of day to day. You know, it's a part of what you do in the day that keeps you active. I mean, in Japan, there's still a lot of people moving around on foot. There's still a lot of commuting. Versus in Kingston, there's not a lot of public transportation available across all socio-economic setups. So you find most people are now commuting in a single car. So
okay.
activity levels are cut. If they had to commute from Spanish Town, or jump on a bus, etc., you know, what you're finding is, I mean, which concludes what we are even looking at this present moment, is I have an 81-year-old guy who comes here in the car park. He comes now and again to check on what's happening, as you know, pick up some of the rubbish and stuff. He's 81. And he is fitter potentially most than the members that we have. And that's because his day to day is activity. The members here drive here in a nice car and they leave here in a nice car and they go to the next place in a nice car. So we are seeing, I think the more advanced societies, like in Scandinavia and certain parts of Europe, are realizing that activity should not be removed from a developing society.
Even walking, just walking as well. Just
Just
walk.
walking is substantial.
Another thing about the food, sugar-free drinks. Do those make a difference? Because we talked about the packaging and stuff, and one thing on a sugar-free drink is 0 calories, 0 calories.
Yeah,
Is there such a
yeah.
thing as a 0 calorie drink?
Yes, there is. It makes it's zero energy. Now, if you are just focusing on losing weight, which is one that should be your first protocol if you are overweight, calorie deficit is good. So the diet option or the 0 calorie option is good because you're maintaining a 0 calorie. Now, health and nutrition has different levels. The calorie amount above that is the type of food. So there are certain sweeteners in the 0 calorie that they use to replace sugar that oftentimes, like there are some studies that point to it, the amount, the quantity being cancerous.
Okay.
So, for example, like a certain diet sodas, you'd have to consume 50 plus portions of it for it to become a carcinogen. However,
Carcinogen.
different people may respond differently to it, and the science may not be there to support that. But at the end of the day, there are sugar replacements that are not as good for you.
Say for instance, I don't like walking, I don't like moving, and I want to eat my McDonald's, I want to eat my KFC, I want to eat my box food, I want to get my jerk chicken Friday night, and me join the line at
Jerk
KFC for
chicken is
my
a good
three-piece
choice, by the way.
barbecue. Huh?
Jerk chicken is a good choice.
Yeah. Yeah, jerk, yeah,
Right.
yeah, for real, because it's not oily. Um, and I want to sort of find a solution so I can still eat all the KFC I want. I still can eat all the KFC and the box food I want. I get Ozempic. Is this a way forward? Will I be overall healthier?
Ozempic will then reduce the need or want for you to consume so much calories for the day. That's the thing with these GLP-1s. Now, there are some other studies that are coming out with these type of drugs that they have drastic side effects, especially you utilizing your lean mass as an energy source. Now, when you start to lose lean muscle, you're now looking at other functional challenges later down the line and other metabolic issues because the less muscle you have, when you do come off the Ozempic, you are less weight, including less muscle. Chances are you will gain back that weight at a more rapid amount because you have less muscle tissue. Less muscle tissue means less efficiency in your metabolism. So,
Okay.
Ozempic is a band aid on the root cause because when you stop taking it, what happens to the cravings again?
They come back.
So, yeah. I mean, going down this route of Ozempic, I mean, there are persons who have chronic illness such as diabetes and hypertension, it probably what's going to kill them anyway. So if they took Ozempic, it would then give them more time, which most doctors then would weigh. If I'm going to increase this person's health span or lifespan, then the interjection will potentially may be hazardous in the long term, but it's going to give them more time now to spend with friends and family.
And what if I notice a lot of the dollies, as they would say in Jamaica, they're getting liposuction? Does that mean that they're healthier than they are than because they had the fat sucked out? Does that mean they're healthier?
Liposuction really only focuses on the subcutaneous fat, which is the fat at the surface of the skin. It doesn't really go into the visceral fats, which is the fat surrounding around the organs. It can be a very dangerous process to try and remove fat around the organs via surgery. So visceral fat tends to be the one that is mostly the problem when it comes to poor health. So lipo can reduce the subcutaneous fat and the surface fat and improve your aesthetics. Yes, it may improve how you look, but it never really removed the toxicity of the fat that is really surrounding the organs, which does it make you a healthier person? Yes, when you reduce body weight, you become a healthier person, but you still don't fix the root cause. You still have cravings. Most people who do liposuctions and who do these surgeries, the surgeons would tell you they're back in 2 years because
Okay.
they don't behavior modify, they don't change their lifestyle. So it's a band-aid on a large wound.
Behavior modification, I'm guessing that's more coming down to the mentality and the resilience of it. How do you how do you get the maximum out of your clients when they decide to come to you? One of the biggest issues is like you can't fix their mind. If this person don't listen to you, even no matter how much money they pay you, it's still going to be a challenge for you. How do
Well,
you tell it to them that you can help them?
at the level that we operate, we do have psychological intervention and mental. We do behavioral modification and lifestyle change because that's the only long-term solution. So we introduce people to certain books to read, which let them understand how their brain actually works. There are certain parts of your brain that's triggered by certain types of food. So we give them the neuroscience behind cravings, their brain, dopamine, they have the data. So we give them the education. The education is a part of their training. What we also do, we introduce people to a process generally that locks them into a system. People that have goals only achieve the result on the short term, versus people who keep their results for the long term operate systematically. They train on these days because it's time to train. Just like in the Jamaican diet where it's 2 peas on this day or oxtail on Sunday. That's a system of eating which causes these chronic issues in the long term. It's because we are on the wrong system. It's getting these persons to first identify their purpose in life. And if their purpose, we try to link it back to longevity and health span. They want to be healthy and strong for their kids, or they want to be able to climb a flight of stairs. Whatever these things are linked to purpose and their outcomes for their health, we find that purpose. The purpose then aligns with goals. These goals could mean that I need to lose 20 pounds, right, to improve my health markers. Once we identify the goals, we then identify the system that creates these goals. The systems is what I do every day. The new habits that I create, it takes 90 days to create new habits, 21 days to create a new direction, and about 55 to 60 days to lock them in, but 90 days to solidify this now, where if I get up and I don't go walk first thing, I feel weird. So these new systems that you put in places now, you start to put across the day. All right, when you wake up, 30 minutes walking. Practice intermittent fasting, first meal, 12 o'clock. You practice other coping mechanisms to deal with food cravings that they have, and you find replacements. So, for example, soda, we may replace it with sparkling water with some electrolytes. That's 0 calorie and it's hydrating your body. Most of the times, people make bad nutritional decisions because they are dehydrated and they think they're hungry, or they're sleep deprived and they're low energy and they consume food to try and do that. But really, their body needs rest. So these systems that we're creating, we're getting people to assess their sleep via devices, smart wearables that they may wear. They know that if I got 4 hours sleep last night, chances are my whole system is going to be off for the entire day. So people now start to be aware of the triggers and create the right system to get the outcomes that they want long term.
One thing when we
So
talk
you
about,
cannot get around behavioral modification.
I totally get that, cause looking at me, and you see me here, I used to be 260 pounds,
Right.
260 pounds, uh,
Mm-hmm.
5'11", 5'6" probably a little bit more. And
Right.
I literally had to modify my behavior and change
Mm-hmm.
the way that I do things in order to basically shed over 60, 70 pounds of that weight.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
man. So
And that's
that's why
because you created.
the habits
No,
and
that's
the
because you
routine.
created a system.
Yeah, it's a system that works for me. And unfortunately, I had to learn it the slow and hard way myself. And I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
that people are like you are out there providing that knowledge to people as well.
Right, because
It's not that easy to
I'm gonna
see.
give you a quote that's very important for this.
Mhm,
And it says, goals are for people who care about winning once.
mhm.
Systems are for people who care about winning repeatedly.
True.
So if you want to win repeatedly, you must have a system.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with some famous artists out there and some athletes as well. And one of them I can share with you is a good friend of mine, which is Mark Maris, Buju Banton. I've done some extensive work with him. And even before I met this guy and started to work with him, the systems that this man has in place shows you his outcome. Why this man can jump on stage, why this man can remain lean and fit is because of his systems. The
Mm-hmm.
systems that he lives by. He doesn't overly consume, right? He's always worked out. I only met him 6 years ago, so I never brought activity to him. I wasn't the one that he's been working out before I was born.
Yeah.
But I was able to work with him on different improvements in other areas. But the point is, this is a known artist that can go on stage and jump so high and can twist and bend and do all these things. And what keeps him there are his systems.
Systems in place
Lisa
and
Hanna is another one, another personality that I've worked with. she's always maintained a lean physique year round. Systems. Don't eat and drink anything. Don't go certain places at certain time. Most of these people are in bed before 9 o'clock.
So sleep is a very important thing as
Sleep
well,
is
right?
critical. Everything falls apart without good sleep.
How do you get better sleep then?
First, you want to track it to quantify it. So you want to see, you have to, a smart wearable is the easiest way because it tracks your heart rate and it registers it via an app to see where your resting heart rate go and how long it goes, because you want to have deep sleep for at least 60 to 90 minutes per sleep cycle, or per sleep occurrence.
Night.
So
Yeah.
between a 6 to 8 hour period, you want about that amount of deep sleep. Now, when you track your sleep, you are able to then know where you are. But also feeling, when you should wake up well rested. Um, if you go, like, for example, when I go to like Blue Mountain and I stay camp up there for the night, there's no noise up there and the skies are dark and the place is cool. So the temperature makes a difference. Sleeping in heat is more problematic than sleeping in the cool. So you want to be in a cool environment to sleep. You want to be in a dark environment. You want to be in a noise-free environment. You don't want to have your cell phone with Wi-Fi around you because those signals also disturb your sleep. You don't want to sleep near a Wi-Fi box. So all of these precursors are what sets you up for a good night's rest. And then when you wake up, you will feel it. You feel rested. So even if you don't have a sleep tracker, you should wake up feeling rested. And if you have the right system and you're an early morning person to exercise, you have to go to bed early enough to wake up to maintain that system.
Yeah.
So I don't keep certain friends. I don't have certain friends who are into, because your tribe becomes what you are. I can't have certain friends who are not partying late at night. I have to run in the morning at 4 o'clock. It's a no compromise for me.
You run at 4 o'clock every morning?
Most mornings, yeah. On the
Jesus.
weekends, I might start at a little bit later.
You
And that's
sleep
my
in until
system.
6.
Huh?
But that's a system. The moment someone hear that they have to get up 4 o'clock and run, they turn off from the
No, but they
system.
don't have to do it. I built into that system after. That works for me because I sleep in the middle of the day. Because my type of businesses that I run, it goes quiet from about 11 till about 3 p.m. So I take siestas in the middle of the day.
The Spanish, like the Spanish people here, so
Right, there you
the
go. So I've
yeah.
created my lifestyle around my mission, which is to help people. My people, most of my people that I help within the Eastern Standard Time Zone are not doing activity or needed my services between the middle of the day.
So you're saying that no matter what life you're living, you can build a system for a healthier life
You can
around you.
build
If
a
you're a
healthier
trucker that is
system.
driving every day for 12 hours driving, you can still develop a system to adapt to it. If you're working
Absolutely.
a night shift in a call center, you can still develop a system for it. So the system is
Yes.
there for
The
everyone.
system is the plan. And when you
Oh,
deviate from the plan, you will not get the outcome.
okay. Another thing,
Because when you
the
sit
gen-
down and you look at a problem, you come up with a plan. So when you
yeah,
sit down and have a problem and you come up with a plan, if you don't stick to the plan, how you gonna get the result then? The result them can't come if you don't stick to a plan.
and you have to track them, right?
You have to track them to then hold yourself accountable.
Okay,
But so that's
accountability.
why you want to lock the system into a time and to an effort.
And effort expanded. Uh, these systems as well, especially going to the gym, a lot of women shy away from that, so they don't want to get too bulky. Is that true? If my girlfriend start going to the gym with me, is she going to get more
If
biceps
she's
than me?
consuming too much calories. So if you go to lift weights and you're in a calorie surplus, you're gonna build muscle on top of the fat that you already have. So you are going to get bulky. For you
Okay.
not to become bulky as a female, you have to be in a calorie deficit. So the muscle you start to build, the body fat is coming down. You're keeping the females also concerned about their curves. How a female maintain her curves is to replace the body fat with lean mass, which is muscle. So she has to be consuming less food. Well, to build muscle, you need a little bit of a surplus, which is more protein on the surplus, to be honest. A little bit less carbohydrates. But you can do these things in cycle. But To answer your question overall, a female can become bulky if she doesn't watch her diet. It's not to do with the exercise in the gym because females produce 10% of the amount of testosterone that males do. So it's not as easy for them. They
Okay.
can't just go in the gym and swell up. It's just because they're consuming too much food.
How does it affect their periods though?
The female menstrual cycle, in terms of activity levels,
Yeah,
it
activity
helps
levels
to
and diet.
regulate their hormones, which then regulates their having regular menstrual cycles. So females who may have irregular cycles or really painful menstrual cycles, looking at diet and lifestyle again, looking at the messaging, the chemical messaging which speaks to us, which is the hormones. Where's their testosterone? Where's their estrogen? You know, where are the key performing hormones for female health? These things often will then dictate what happens with what's taking place with them. Stress levels also may affect these blood markers. All of these things are critical for females when they have irregular menstrual cycle or just having other challenges.
Does the fat content that a woman consumes affect her cycles?
I would say the more sugar content. I'd say the data points more to
For the
processed sugar and alcohols.
for a negative correlation or a positive?
For negative correlation. They generally have that's where the issues start. And it depends on the age of the female as well, because if the female is perimenopausal or start to move into menopause, the issues become different. Because females' hormone keep shifting as they age, and as they age, males too, or testosterone tends to go down. But that's also potentially not a key indicator because you have men with you have two men who have the same level of testosterone could give you a different outcome. So
Okay.
you're going into deeper science, which is androgen receptors, which is how the receptors receive the testosterone. So, I mean, male, female, very complex, two different total beings, and require different protocols to make different changes based upon the individual.
A lot of women say that they're not overweight, they're big boned. Is that a thing?
That's not true. I mean, African Americans tend to carry a little bit heavier bone structure, but it's not so profound for tissue. So even if your bones were slightly heavier and slightly bigger, they are not gigantic to the point that this makes a enormous, obvious change to your structure. Your structure now comes down to how much body fat and lean mass you have on it.
A big issue for women is PCOS. Um,
Yes,
how is it more difficult for a woman suffering from this to lose weight, maintain a certain body weight?
yes. Because one of the issues with PCOS is insulin resistance. And if the insulin resistant matter isn't addressed, mm, yes, a calorie deficit is the optimal response to weight loss, to be in a deficit. But when you're finding females who have hormonal challenges in terms of how they feel and how bloated they may be, so bloating is a way females can store weight, water weight, excessive amount of weight. It could be up to 10 pounds from bloating. So some a female could be spazzing out that, oh, I gained 10 pounds, but it could have been bloating. And the sauna is one of the interventions that can help with this. So heat, cold is not as, cold can help women as well with thyroid function. Many different things can help in terms of interventions.
Mhm.
Uh, However, with females now saying that, the PCOS in particular leads to more weight gain. There's a debate for it because of how it may force the body to store energy and to store toxins versus actually going into them actually storing more body fat. So weight doesn't have to be body fat. It could just be storing weight from just more liquid in the body or various different other issues why they're holding on to weight versus muscle and fat.
So someone that is suffering from PCOS still can be in a caloric deficit and lose weight and maintain a certain body weight.
Yes, they can, because overall, calorie deficit is what causes the body to pull on the energy sources that is stored.
Okay.
However, there could be particulars why somebody's body isn't operating optimally because of the types of food they're consuming. So if they have a high sugary diet, it may be complex for them to get a deficit because they are so addicted to those types of food. They keep consuming that food, and it's even not, it's the amount of food. Now, what has happened to their body is they would need to go through what we call a process of reverse dieting. Some people, their metabolism can fail them that much because of these issues that they have going on. They're consuming less calories, but they are still not losing weight.
Wow.
So so where their calorie maintenance figure is so low. So extended period of fasting as well can cause this, where somebody's now base metabolism is at like 1,200 calories, and their body is holding on to weight at a very low calorie.
Well, you just
They
told me
would
that
some people
fasting
need
was
to
good.
eat more food to
But
lose weight.
you
In that
just
case,
told me that fasting was good for the man that go to the field in the morning and eat at 12 o'clock. So too much fasting can have a negative effect.
too much fasting can have a negative effect on certain persons. Certain
Mhm.
persons, in terms of their body, they're moving into a deficit which is not sustaining their body, not giving them the right nutrients that they need. Fasting really generally I find works best for people who are overweight and who are trying to control blood sugar. Always, every 10 pounds you lose or gain, you become a different person. It's a different you are physiologically a different person at that 10 pounds. So a new answer becomes available. If you are at your leanest, where you're supposed to be, you're a new person. You can just eat, you are now able to eat way more food than you used to be in order to potentially maintain that new weight that you had, especially if you built a certain amount of muscle. So that's why
Okay.
all the situation has to be verified.
Okay. So your basal metabolic rate changes with your weight and overall fitness level as
And the
well.
type of tissue. With
Okay.
your
Okay.
fitness, your tissue, because you burn the most calories at rest. It's not
Mm.
activity that burns the most calories. It's at rest for your body to function that you burn the most calories. For your nails to grow, for your hair to
Mm.
grow. All of these things require calories. And your body burns, you burn more of this doing these things than you do actually exercising.
Wow. Wow. You're definitely putting me on to a lot. Tony, I feel like I don't give you a chance to ask the question.
No chance, no chance. But since we're on the topic of deficits, um, a lot. I wonder if you find that some of your clients, if you've ever had like a client who is a vegan or a pescatarian, and those people, what chances do they have to not be at a deficit?
Um, Most of the vegans and pescatarians I've worked with, if they're consuming a lot of ultra processed, that's probably why they're not at a deficit. So if they're eating like cookies and bread and stuff like that, that's when they are not really, I would say, you would call ITAL vegan. It's totally different. ITAL vegans, you'll find that because they're consuming food from the earth, it's a lot easier and less challenging for them to maintain a deficit because they're eating foods that are wholesome and that fills them. But then on the ITAL side as well, you have persons that you may come out with vitamin B deficiencies. That's the ability for them to pull energy from the food that they're consuming because they don't consume meat. And they would need to then find an alternative in the plant world to give them those B vitamins.
And for the
So,
pescatarian, is eating fish enough in terms of protein content?
yes, like one whole snapper fish is like 80 grams of protein. So Presbyterian is a good way to go. It's just that these proteins are a bit more complex to break down if you're not if you're a straight vegan. It just becomes more of a challenge to find the right foods. It's not impossible to gain muscle being a vegan. It's just harder and
Okay.
require more regulation. But pescatarian is fairly easy because see, fish comes with a lot of protein, lean protein as well.
Okay, and earlier you mentioned something because everybody knows what an overweight person might be, but what is an underweight person?
What
If
is that?
such a term
Sorry, say that
exists.
again.
So everybody knows what an overweight person might look like, or the definition of
Right.
it. But what about somebody who is under their weight,
Okay.
and what kind of implications does that have for them?
All right. So underweight is also a concern too, because your body is now pulling on its stores that it has for sustenance day to day. An underweight person, the BMI chart is outdated, but it's still a chart that a lot of medical professionals use, where they're looking at your height versus your weight. Hip waist to height ratio is another way we can find out if the person is underweight. So generally, it's using a height to then measure weight, but then also you're looking at how much muscle tissue, which is hard. There's no official scientific way to measure muscle at the moment, but we can measure fat, which is body fat. They can use DEXA scans. They can use loads of MRI can look at the fat internally and at the surface level as well. But to find out, to dictate when somebody is underweight, you have to carry out the tests, obviously. And when they're underweight, yes, it is a problem just as much as being overweight, because it then comes down to nutrient deficiency. Nutrient deficiency is a whole problematic situation that will need addressing, because if you're deficient in minerals and vitamins, which hydration is critical, hydration is so key for the body for it to function properly and work according to what it was supposed to do. So yeah, it's underweight is just a same big of a problem as being overweight, and it is a health challenge.
And can you look at somebody and tell if they're underweight,
There
or
are
is it very hard?
various signs that health professionals can use. You can look in the face and see the level of visceral fat in their cheeks, etc. Um, but those aren't absolute. It would be somebody that's utilizing this data regularly that can kind of use it to make an educated decision, but they still have to do testing, because one thing you don't want to do with people's health is to make decisions which are impartial. Really, you want to make decisions which are without emotion. You want to make decision on facts. So you still would need testing, but you can observe, but you still would make your checks, your necessary checks in the back end.
And I know that you're not a medical doctor, but you're a dietitian. What would you recommend somebody who is wants to change their diet? They want to stop eating meat and they want to be whether ital vegan or pescatarian. What would you recommend for them not to be deficient in certain minerals and vitamins?
What foods?
Right. So everyone should do blood work at least. Now it's changed. Now people are asking, because there's so much technology around it where you can do it from your house. People are doing blood work now at least every 3 months, because it's a snapshot of your nutrition and your exercise, right? So I would say get regular blood works. Where you're naturally deficient, you will need to address it. So often, B vitamins are one of the ones that come up. So a B shot, but a B shot, should you be using that sustainably? I would say find other means through food to get on top of it. So B vitamins, another one would be electrolytes, which are the minerals that hydrate you, such as sodium, potassium, magnesium, chloride. These things are also essential minerals, vitamins that are good for sustenance. Vitamin D deficiencies, especially for people of darker skin tone, especially the ones who are living in the northern hemisphere where they're not getting as much sun. Vitamin D is actually now a hormone, right? Yeah.
Yeah, man. I
So
just
that's
got
a
a
challenge
prescription for
too.
winter.
Huh?
I just had to get up. I just did my blood work a couple of weeks ago, and vitamin D deficiency was there, so I had to get my
Yeah.
winter
Right.
supplements for it.
So people with darker skin tones, it's more difficult for us to absorb sunlight because of the melanin within our skin. So we don't, lighter skin color people, specifically Caucasian people, they absorb vitamin D a lot easier because of their evolution over so many years of being able to survive in these type of conditions. So they hold on to vitamin D stores for a lot longer than we do, and they actually pull it a lot easier. Whereas we struggle. Now, vitamin D can be then supplemented with, but nothing beats the sun.
True.
Nothing beats the original source.
True. But if you can't find the sun and you're a Jamaican living overseas and you're feeling
Yes,
extra
you,
tired
you
and low on
definitely,
energy, get the vitamin
definitely will get
D
the,
pill.
yes, you
And
definitely
the
need to
one
get
that
it checked.
the one I'm taking, I think the last year I got it. I get it every winter for 3 months, and then my stores are normally up when the sun comes back out. This year I'm getting like one. I just take one pill every 2 weeks. It's not a big deal. I just have to put it in my
Or
system.
you
And
can spend, I know it's cold outside, but one other thing, when I was living in Europe, I literally just spent more time outside.
yeah.
Where I
As
was
much
living
as
in
possible.
UK, I used to cycle to school.
So more time. No, but I try that 15 minutes at least in the direct sun when it is out there, but the sun is literally not there as well. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's
Cloudy.
just
Yeah.
gloomy.
Yeah.
So supplements. Since we're on the topic, how important is that in as a part of your protocol? Like the spry training.
For me, supplementing based upon my blood work, I don't supplement heavily
Mhm,
because I generally hit from my nutrition the things that I need.
mhm,
Um, I've not in a long time come back deficient with anything, and that's just out of systems.
mhm,
However, there are five key supplements if I was to pull from all the data of majority of persons that I've looked over their blood and looked over what's happening with them. So I work closely with a lot of doctors, especially doctors in the UK who work with lifestyle modification. So they normally then come in with a patient for 12 weeks and you have to help them to change what their outcomes is in 12 weeks, right? So the most deficient ones that come up is definitely vitamin D3. Uh, we also have magnesium, which is one of the top deficiencies as well. Definitely zinc comes up in it too. Probiotic, which is for your gut health. A probiotic is really the good bacteria in your gut. Fermented foods can give you that, but then a probiotic supplement can help. And then there was another one, which would be a fish oil, which is an omega 3. The omega 3 generally would have to consume a lot of oily fish to get it, like salmon. It's not in snapper and it's not in your whiter fish. It's more in your oily types of fish. So, an omega 3 is a major deficiency. I also would come across too. So, those five are
How
definitely
about
the
how
top
about
five ones.
iron for especially like women?
Iron is a deficiency, it's not as frequent. You tend to find that more people who are anemic.
Mhm.
Um, so doctors generally will spot these deficiencies. Yeah, it wouldn't be as common as the other particular ones that I just mentioned. An iron deficiency may be common, but I would say it's not as common.
Okay,
But it is up there. It is up there, and it points to also the types of food that you're consuming.
true. What
So
about
certain
protein?
diets that you're exposed to may not don't have what you need to get for that.
Okay. What about the protein powders and the creatine and the pre-workouts and the BCAAs and the whatever these GGs and AG1s, all those
All right.
things?
So those are your supplements which are common on the market. Are they needed? Depending on the person's situation. If you're not getting enough protein, a protein powder can make a huge difference. Different people's gut health refuse certain proteins. Like some people may need a vegan protein powder. Some
Mhm.
people may need one that is fast digesting. Some people may need one that has different things added to it. Some people might get bloating from the regular protein powder. So protein powder, yes, it is a good choice to bring. It's probably one of the widest things you can do from a macronutrient perspective is to add more protein to your diet because it helps skeletal muscle from degenerating and also it helps to build it. Uh, Creatine is also another top rated supplement. Again, if you're not getting it from your natural intake, you can supplement with it along with the BCAs and stuff. Branched chain amino acids are essentially amino acids, which is protein. BCAA just may have a higher leucine uptake, which is one of the amino acids. You have valine, leucine, and another one, I can't remember the top of my head, but there are three generally branched chain amino acids that are commonly frequent in these products, and they can help. Can you do without them? Yes, you can, but then you have to make sure your food is giving you what you need.
Rasta community. They always say drink up your roots and your baba roots and them thing there. Is there any fitness benefit to these things?
Yes, the challenge of these things though is because it's not widely studied. And the reason why they're not widely studied because it's not really beneficial to anybody apart from the individuals who sell it, right? And our community, technically, it would be good for organizations like UE to carry out large studies on these routes. So when you don't have large studies, you fall short on the amount, the dosage. So the dosage is often passed down through ancestral observations, which if it's coming from the right sources, it is coherent with us as a species. However, if it gets miscombobulated at some point, you might be taking these routes, but how much of it you're taking at a time for your situation and how frequent.
Okay, so the
So some of the
dosage.
problems that come down to the roots is not what they can do for you. It is the dosage and the dosage to be consistent and coherent with what you're using it for. Because moringa, all of these spirulina, all of these things are great in isolation, but the supplement companies are not spending on them because they don't really use it in their products. So it's not beneficial to run a check on 10,000 people to find out the dosage amount that's needed to deal with this.
Yeah. And even if the supplement companies did run it, if they're not selling it, they're gonna skew the data towards their thing, which is a whole other debate.
Absolutely.
Which is a whole other
Exactly.
debate. Which a whole other debate.
Exactly.
Jay, the why should people choose your fitness brand compared to others?
Uh, the reason why I get persons to really train with us, we provide the education to other trainers as well, because we've had many trainers that come through our system and they're doing their own thing, is because of the type of education we provide to the function of the human body. And the simplest way I can explain this is the a lot of training now is pushed around by influencers who are not coaches. So they may learn how to build muscle. And they know that, if you do some bicep curl, you grow your biceps. But to sit through anatomy and physiology for years and understanding how the body really works, neglecting mobility, neglecting flexibility, neglecting endurance, neglecting everything else that doesn't make you look good, but it is very important behind creating the body that looks good. You then don't get the full experience. So what we do differently, for example, we ask you to touch your toes. That is a function. When I talk about function, that is a function that all human beings should be capable of doing. And if you can't touch your toes, perhaps you shouldn't be deadlifting.
Or seeing them.
Right. There you go. Another function that we may look at is the ability for you to be able to bend your spine. Now, doing bench pressing or overhead pressing to build up the muscles around your shoulder, if your spine health is not good, that means you have poor function. You may end up with pain in the long run. You have to go see a physiotherapist. You may end up getting the body that you want to, but it's imbalanced because you didn't approach it from a functional standpoint. And function really comes down to the nitty gritty of how the body is supposed to work. And that is where the professional who went to study for it and systemizes this. Because I've been there when I got into sports like powerlifting, where the only metric you're tracking is how heavy you can squat, bench, or deadlift. But that isn't the complete overall to the performance of the human body. Just by how much weight you lift is no indicator to your function.
Okay. I like
In
that you
fact,
proper
most
you proper
powerlifters that we end up treating for pain is because of powerlifting that caused it.
I like how you put everything together. You're not saying to go to one extreme or the end. Don't go full on gym, bro. Just
No,
build
because
muscle, more strong cardio.
the data that shows the athletes that live the longest are tennis players.
Yeah.
So I'm not. So when you put the data on the table, it's not that Usain Bolt is going to live the longest by what he was doing. Usain Bolt deteriorated his body a lot through doing high performance training. Yes, the coach Mills might have got him to run on the right curve as much as he run on the left because of his spine. If he was running 10 years just going around the bend one way, you create imbalance, right? His spine tips. So that training, which you're gonna say, yeah, man, it made the man fit and strong and healthy. Yeah, a lot of it broke down his body as well. How do you correct this for longevity? So it's not the fittest man in the room, it's the longest living man in the room. Longevity comes down to not so much aggressive training either. One of the most recent other data points. So tennis players are the ones overall that generally belong because they are agile. They have to run left to right. They have to have endurance to run. They have to have the strength to turn and twist. If you look at somebody like, I mean, this is a common secular example. The Queen of England, when she passed away, she swore in our last prime minister in the same week that she died. So she have the cognitive capabilities to have still carried out her function. There's no images or videos of this woman working out in a gym. All this woman did was cross her palace at Sandringham, ride her horses, keep active, and maintain a balanced diet. It's the same for our elders in Jamaica who are living into their 90s, our centurions. It's not no gym going that caused that. It is the activity that can be mimicked in the gym that wasn't done to a point beyond exhaustion.
The evolutionary approach put in the gym now. One thing you just said,
Yes, the
tennis.
gym is only really now because we live in cities. There's no farm for the farm.
Yeah. Or hunting for the hunt. Really.
Right. So we're mimicking the behaviors that lead to us having longevity.
Okay. Which sport would you say is the most athletic sport that requires the most athleticism?
Tennis, I would say tennis.
Yeah?
Yes, because it requires so much. Hands, feet, everything is moving.
Basketball?
Concentration, you have to look at the ball, you have to see where the ball is going. Whereas football is really only your feet you're using, versus tennis, you're using your hands, your limbs in your upper body as well.
And basketball?
Basketball as well. Basketball as well, I would say, is
Or
definitely
what?
one.
Any water sports like water polo, for example?
Yes, yes, yes. So you're getting the general idea. So I won't
Yeah.
even lean towards just one sport. It is the sport that has taxing of all systems, which is from the heart, the lungs, the muscles, the bones, everything to be involved. And generally, the weightlifting sports, generally like the powerlifting and the bodybuilding, does not have that. But they're the ones that are put on the front of magazines.
Okay. For the aesthetics
Most
and the fame.
bodybuilders cannot climb a flight of stairs without panting. They're out of breath.
And the use of synthetic body
Yes, yes.
enhancers.
The use of steroids drastically has a negative connotation there, especially at the dosage that those guys are taking.
Would you recommend steroids for like a quick weight loss drop and then just
No,
get off it?
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Steroids have become prevalent in the medical space. I do work with a lot of doctors now who prescribe TRT, which is testosterone replacement theory. It is technically an anabolic steroid. They use it with certain people on a very low dosage. I'm not a doctor, I can't prescribe drugs. I believe in lifestyle modification. I always come back to the lifestyle way.
Lifestyle way.
I
Because I
always,
know
all the doctors that I work with, but you see, some of the doctors will argue that, listen, this patient that I have is not going to change their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I'm going to prescribe it, which is going to improve their quality of life.
give him the easy way out. Because a lot of men
Right.
I know, once they hit 35, 40, they jump on the TRT because they still want to maintain a six pack, and TRT is the easy way to maintain it. Even if they go to the gym regular, have a lifestyle, they say that, wow, it's harder now than it was then. So TRT give me that little help.
Yeah, but you see, a six pack is not a true reflection of health.
Okay.
Why is a six pack unnecessary? A six pack arguably is a way to signal low body fat, but if your body fat is too low, you're still just as problematic with erectile dysfunction. The guys who are incredibly lean, they have erectile dysfunction issues. Once your body fat gone down into single digits, you're also problematic on the other side.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's not the leaner the better. It's not. It really isn't.
balance, holistic
Balance, and
approach. Yeah,
depends on
man.
your
It
blood
is a
type, your
balance,
body type.
right?
Yeah. Is there anything that
It's
else
what
that
we
you
have
want?
seen in our it's what we have seen in our rural societies. You
Mm-hmm.
see, our epitome of good health is still walking around in Portland and in St. Thomas. You still go there and see them.
Yep.
They are still there. They are your farmers that are farming up into their 80s and 90s. They're not taking any drugs,
Yeah.
but they've been living this life repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
And they're certainly, most of them are not on a high protein diet either. So I'm not going to come. This is where I fall out with a lot of the longevity experts who are now popping up because they're sponsored by supplement companies. I have in my data pool in Jamaica persons on high carbohydrate, low protein diets who are living into the centurion.
Yeah.
Wow.
Functional movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Functional movement for real.
And
Is
a
there
diet
anything
of calorie deficit.
diet of calorie deficit? Is there anything that you'd want to summarize this entire session with? For someone that's just going to watch a 30-second clip or a 1 minute clip, what would you say to them to get them on the path of fitness?
Let fitness become a system of your lifestyle and not a goal. Look at your ancestral observations, examples out there of whichever country you may come from. Look at the people in your society that lived the longest. Look at the lifestyle that they lived. Try and replicate that as much as possible in your everyday for the optimizing your lifestyle. Do not get trapped in the convenience of life that is now presented in front of us, which is the food being microwavable, the opportunity to basically not move to earn more money. It will eventually catch up with you. You have to really just find that ultimate sweet spot to create a system in your life that's going to keep your body functioning how it's supposed to.
Okay.
Because you're going to pay for it. You're going to then end up having all the money you want in the world. You're going to pay it back out to the doctor and the physio trying to keep yourself healthy and strong.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I like that approach because they say, "Oh, health is wealth," and people hear that simple statement and they don't realize how true it is. The richest
Yep.
man in the
But
world will spend
the
Is
all
the
his
richest
money.
people
wealthiest
do it.
man.
Yeah,
The richest dynasties in the world have health for part of their systems. They don't go to gyms. They just have big estates that they walk on, and they have chefs and people that create nutritious meals for them.
yeah,
And I'm not talking young rich and new rich. I'm talking about the dynasties around the world who their average family members are living into the 80s and 90s. They have chefs and they have properties that are set up where they can walk for miles.
yeah, man. Let's do that. Jay, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this information. Hopefully, we'll have you back. We'll probably drop this one towards the new year. So if you're watching this in the new year, you get in contact with Jay. We'll have his information linked below, and his social media is always there. Are you taking on new clients for the new year?
Yes, we're always taking on new clients. We have a large team of over 30 of us as trainers, so we're always taking on new people.
Yeah, new people from anywhere in the world, or does it have to be
Anywhere in the
local?
world. Once you reach out to us via a DM, we will then put you on a program. We have programs that are entry level, which are more affordable, which is less time constraints, and you give you the program to get on with your own time. And you have more programs that have a trainer that is there with you, check in with you, call you, message you, hold you accountable. So it really depends on what level of accountability and intervention you need.
So please check out Jay's stuff.
Definitely.
And hopefully this will be the year that you start that new system of fitness and functional training in order to increase the longevity and live longer. Because one thing, when I have youths, I want to be playing with my kids into my 60s, 70s. If I have a youth at 70, I should still be able to go kick a ball with him at that age. Because I saw people in my neighborhood living until 80, and every evening they used to walk and come on my yard, come see my mother. My mother used to ask, Miss Girlie, how you walk come over the hill, let's see me and you're 80. But she do it every day,
Yeah,
and that little walk what she do every day add an extra day upon her life, and we don't even realize
exactly.
how it go. Which is exactly what Jay
Exactly.
proved. When we hear about these populations living older, living a lot longer in Japan and in Spain as well, in those countries, It's the functionality of it. The grandparents, they get out there, they take care of the grandkids, which is their functional movement, chasing after your grandkids in the park every evening. That is a workout in itself, and they don't realize that they're getting in the work in.
Mhm.
If there's no gym, you still have your two legs, you still have your feet. Just try to incorporate it in your system. And Jay,
Mhm.
much respect, and I hope this will help at least one person listening. Thank you so
I
much for
hope
your
so
time.
too.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
man.
much for your time.
Thanks.
And Davin Antonio, Yardman Podcast.
As we say,
Yeah, man.
walk good.
What good.